Chael's demeanor, he's kind of quiet.
No, you want to know what's weird? The weirdest thing is people who fight Brian Stann. First of all, when you make the call to fight Brian Stann, nobody wants to fight the guy, and then nobody talks. It's back and forth. And so even with a guy like Chael Sonnen, it's crazy the power that this kid has, Brian Stann, because he's a Vanderlei didn't even want to fight him. Yeah. Vanderlei's like, fuck that shit, man. This guy's a war hero, and everybody in America loves him. I don't want to fight him.
So you think it's more about that than the fact that Chael's, his first time back after all the troubles he's had?
Hell no. I mean, if it was anybody else that he was fighting, I think he'd be jailed. For some reason, Brian Stann has this thing over all these fighters that, you hear the guy every word that comes out of the guy's mouth is perfect. I mean, the guy is amazing, and I've never seen a fighter. I mean, there's guys like Anderson Silva who have accomplished things that nobody else ever has in the UFC. Nobody gets respect in this sport like Brian Stann does from other fighters.
When you made this fight, that Sonnen Stann fight, you said the winner probably should get the shot. Did you commit to that yet? The winner?
I'm not even thinking about that. Yeah. I'll figure it out after. But I still feel that way.
Regardless, a lot of people are saying if Sonnen wins, it's got to be. If Stann wins, maybe not. Is that kind of the way you feel? Or?
I mean, how could you feel that if Sonnen wins, he deserves a shot at the title, but if not, Stann doesn't?
Right.
Stan's been on a tear and beat some good guys and looked good doing it. Leaving Santiago and now Chael, be tough to deny him.
How about Aldo? This is the second time he's had to be the co-feature. Is there a reasoning behind that?
Anytime you have a main event, you go with the heavier guy. The heavier guy is the main event, the lighter guy is the co-main event. It's not that either one of these fights mean less than Kenny Foreman was a 55-pounder fighting for a title and would have been, it's, when I put the ad together this week for the newspapers, both are the same size and everything else. Neither one of these titles is more important than the other.
Then you talk about Stann and the respect that he gets. Is it background, his fighting, combination of both?
It's his background. It's his war hero status that everybody respects. Plus, the guy is. I mean, you heard him here today at the press conference. He's a hard guy not to like. He's tough. He's got that aura about him. And in the history of being in this business, I've never seen any fighter get as much respect from other fighters as Brian Stann did.
If you had to draw up, when you got into this, and you had to draw up a fighter, would he be the guy?
Well, if you had to design a fighter to go out and fight that you could control with a remote control, it would probably be Anderson Silva. But if you could design a guy that goes out and says all the right things and represents himself perfectly, it would be Brian Stann.
Do you have an update on Anderson's injury?
Well, his injury, it's not that he has some serious injury. He has bursitis in his shoulder. And, the doctor told him he needs to rest it for, 8 weeks or whatever it was, and he's doing physical therapy. So it's not like he's got some injury that needs surgery or anything like that. He just, as amazing as this guy is, we forget that he's 37 years old, 37. He's been fighting for a long time, been involved in martial arts his whole life. Bursitis makes sense.
Now, do you have a clear idea of where you want to go with the lightweight division after this fight?
Yeah. I don't have a clear vision. There's so many guys that are so talented. We need to make a fight, and get somebody for a contender, or bring Melendez in and make that fight right away.
But talking about the growth of the sport in Mexico, what signs have you seen from Mexico towards your sport?
Well, as far as getting into Mexico on television and doing the things that we want to do there, it's a tough nut to crack getting in down there. But the growth has been huge. I don't know if you feel it from what's going on down there. Traditionally, probably the most powerful boxing country in the history of the world. Mexico is huge as far as boxing goes, and there's been a lot of crossover. The younger generation now. The younger generation is getting into mixed martial arts just like they are all over the rest of the world, but it's more impressive to see it in Mexico being, the boxing country that it is.
The last fight, the Mayweather-Ortiz fight, was kind of a turnoff even to the purest of boxing fans. Do you think that boxing is shooting itself in the foot?
It was a tough one. That was a tough fight, and I'll be the first one to say when boxing shoots itself in the foot. But my opinion on that fight, it was 100% the referee. The referee destroyed that fight. The referee's job is to listen, especially in boxing. Two guys are in there to fight. And your job is to keep them safe and make sure everybody, plays by the rules. That ref didn't do that at all. Not to mention the stuff that was said between those two. Ortiz was rubbing his head in Floyd's face the whole night. Then, Billy Goat headbutts him in the face. And then just everything that went on with that fight. It's not unusual. It's not unusual for two boxers to go after each other. That's why the referee is in there. And that guy didn't do his job and ruin that fight. So I wouldn't necessarily blame that fight on the sport. I'd blame it on the guy who was supposed to be regulating.
Then you brought up Gilbert Melendez's name. He was supposed to fight in December. There's talk that maybe that fight doesn't happen anymore. Maybe his next fight is in the UFC. Can you comment on that? Do you think he'll still fight?
I don't know. We'll see. We're still trying to figure this whole thing out. And I don't like to speak about Strikeforce that much because I'm not involved in it. I'm not the one doing it. So I'm purposely taking myself out of that situation. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But listen, I got to run my business. So if I have to yank them over here, then I'll do it.
You talked about a little bit the last time you guys were here in Houston. You had a pay-per-view event and how successful it was. What individually stood out to you about that event?
Well, we broke the record here for the gate, and I remember the thing about being here too when we did the weigh-ins. It was awesome. This was a great city to do the fight in. It was fun, and it was fun and successful. And I'm excited to bring it back. This card is stacked. Every time I'm on Twitter and listen to fans, everybody keeps talking about how stacked this card is. And I'm excited to go. We've got a good run lately. We put together some great fights, and we got a lot of good stuff happening all the way through the rest of this year. So this is one of many.
How many ticket requests are you already getting on Twitter from fans here in Houston?
Yeah, well, I'm going to tweet tickets, and I'm a little scared. I think it's going to be not as bad as Toronto, but a Toronto-ish type situation here in Houston.
What happens to the loser of the lightweight fight? I mean, this title's been on hold for so long. These guys keep fighting each other. Are they just way down the radar? Does the loser have to think about reinventing himself?
Yeah, it sucks because one of the things about when you're in a position like this, it's almost like both titles. Because when you think about Kenny Florian, Kenny Florian's in one of those positions too. This guy's fought for the title twice, I think, at 55, and now down here at 45. And at this point in his career, should he lose this title fight on Saturday night? What does he do? That's why I'm hoping. I want to see. I don't know how much lower Kenny can go without cutting a limb off, but that's why I want to see Kenny go out and beat Kenny. I want to see him fight this title fight. I don't know how many people agree with me on, how he looks in title fights compared to how he looks in regular fights, but I hope he comes out like the Kenny Florian we used to see him fight.
Do you sense any difference with him and what you've seen so far this week?
I have no idea. I'm sure he's pissed as hell at me that I keep saying this and talking about it, but he's a gentleman and never says anything to me, and but at the end of the day, I'm a fight fan too, and that's my opinion of what I see when Kenny Florian fights for title fights. And hopefully, by me shooting my big mouth off and talking shit, he won't do that again this Saturday. He'll go out and fight like he does when it's not a title fight.
Dana, going back to Anderson for a second, if he didn't injure his shoulder, would you have booked him against Dan Henderson before any of this Chael Sonnen and Brian Stann stuff?
Yeah, if he was able to fight, I probably would have done him and Dan Henderson.
In San Jose?
I don't know where.
So will Dan still be getting a title shot after the Shogun because it's a different weight class?
Should Dan win? Yeah, he's definitely one of the guys that could go take that fight.
So there's no clear-cut number one contender.
I mean, it'd be tough to say that Henderson isn't.
Right.
It'd be tough to say, but God willing, everything goes our way. That we can. He can come out of that fight with Shogun if he wins. Not injured, and see what happens.
And any update on Cruz's hand?
He's going to have surgery.
Really?
Yeah.
So
I actually called him yesterday. All my days blend together. It was yesterday or the day before. I can't remember when, but I left him a message and haven't talked to him since. But I wanted to know what was going on. He told me that night, I'm just going to go right in and have surgery. So.
Dana, how important is the style of your broadcast that you think UFC's success? And will that change in any degree when the Fox still talks? Will you still continue to do all the television production?
Yes. Yeah, that was the deal when we went in. I still control all the production. But one of the things about Fox, those guys are the best network in the country because they're good at what they do. I mean, they've revolutionized football, NASCAR, and all these other things. So believe me, they're very involved in the production still, and we're working together to pull this thing off and make it great and take it to the next level and make it better.
But just looking from the style, for example, of the pre-show that you had on here before the news conference, your guys obviously bring a certain style to television in there, but how significant do you think that's been to the success for?
Yeah, I think it's been very big because one of the things that I always said about boxing, if you look at HBO boxing and you watch the fight from 1980, the only thing that's changed is HD. It's the exact same show. They haven't changed anything. The announcers are actually the same too. Boxing hasn't done anything to change itself, to reinvent itself, and one of the things that we do that's different than any other promoter out there. Back in the day before we came, all anybody cared about was the television broadcast. They didn't care about the people who were in the arena. The people who are in the arena actually pay more than the people who are on TV. People on TV, spend $45 for the pay-per-view. People who come to the event spend hundreds to thousands of dollars. Why should they not get a show? So I think that's been one of the reasons that, when we come back to Houston, we were here last time we come back, that we break these records, and even in these hard economic times, because we put on a show for the people who come to the live event. It's a completely different experience being there live than what it is on television. And we're now working to make the live event better and the production better for television viewers over the next, 7 years with Fox.
Do they have any input to the live event as well, or?
Yeah, we're working on, the way that I look at it, these guys are my business partners for the next 7 years. And to be honest with you guys, I like these guys so much. They're such good guys. They're real guys. They're guys you actually want to hang out with and go to dinner with, and they're very good at what they do, and they really care about the sport and the brand, and they couldn't be better partners. So you guys have heard me for the last 10 years saying, yeah, we'll do a network deal, but nobody's controlling this production. I'm controlling this production, and that's the only way we're doing a deal. Well, now we have a deal with guys that I actually want involved in the production.
So it seems that they moved more toward you than you moved toward them in terms of reaching that sort of mainstream sort of nexus or whatever that would need to be done to do a deal like that.
Yeah, well, the biggest problem with building this sport from day one. From day one when we bought this company, it was, we bought this company because it was going bankrupt and going out of business, but worse than that, it had a bad stigma attached to it. So we started at less than zero when we bought this company. And to turn it around, and the problem was when we bought this company, it wasn't allowed on pay-per-view. Porn is on pay-per-view, okay? The UFC was not allowed on pay-per-view. That's how bad it was. And our goal was to get it on free TV. So it took a long time to get the respect from these major networks in the television business. But the thing that we never did is we never bowed down. We never rolled over. We never, said, oh, let's just do whatever they want to do so we can get on TV. We did it the way that we thought it should be done. We did it the way that we wanted to do it. And we made our way all the way to Fox by doing it our way.
The first event's an hour long. When the deal actually kicks in January, the events will be more like a traditional event.
It's a work in progress. We're still working on this thing. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to do it. I don't know the answers to that yet. You guys know how it is with us. We want to bring the fans as many fights as we possibly can. And one of the big deals about doing a deal with Fox, too, was we have so much content. We're doing so much stuff. We needed enough platforms. So we're going to be on Big Fox. We're going to be on FX. And then the amount of programming, the crazy programming that we're going to do on Fuel is going to have, it's going to be, you're not going to not want to have Fuel. Let me put it to you that way.
You're producing brand new shows just for
yeah, and live fights. We're going to be doing live fights and Ultimate Fighter from different countries. The English-speaking countries will have the Ultimate Fighter from there on Fuel. There's going to be a lot of crazy, cool programming on Fuel.
Have you decided where the undercard fights will air on November 12th?
I haven't. It's literally, that's the last thing I'm concerned with. I'm not even thinking about that yet.
They will air somewhere.
We'll figure it out and we'll get it up there at some point. But I'm more concerned about the production on the Big Fox show right now.
Could they air on Fuel though, or because of the Spike deal, could they not?
No, they can't. They can't. Yeah, our deals are not up until January, and then we can go wherever. That's when we're really in business with Fox. This November 12th fight is just it's just a bonus fight, just to kick off the relationship, because in our Spike deal, we can do broadcast, network television.
Now, as far as the Fox deal, you've spoken for a while about doing live fights every single week. Is that
I'm doing it now.
You basically are doing it now, but is that something that you've worked into the Fox deal?
No, not really. We have our schedule for next year, and it ends up being something like 34 fights next year. Yeah, this year was 27. Next year's 34. That's how crazy that's going to be. You guys, I don't know if you heard me say last week or a few weeks ago, my weeks blend together too. But there's going to be days where we're doing 2 fights on the same day, and the way that we'll do that is from different countries.
Okay.
Whether we're doing a fight in Japan, we'll do one in Vegas too. We're doing a fight in UK, we'll do it in Vegas too. And basically, or here somewhere in the United States, and lead in with the fight from another country, and then go live on pay-per-view with the fight here in this country.
Is that locked in for February, the tentative plan to do the Japan and Vegas?
No. If we do it, I'm assuming that would be our first time that we would probably try to pull that off. I don't know if that's going to happen yet, but that's the one we're talking about.
Some people have criticized that, saying that you're going to have to start so
People
early
have been
in
criticizing
Japan.
me for 10 years.
Yeah.
Every move we've made over the last 10 years was the wrong decision and stupid, and it would never work. So I'm going to continue to make stupid decisions that don't work.
How hard have you found the challenge of doing these back-to-back events week after week and building them up? Because you kind of have to build each event from scratch in each market and everything.
Yeah. No, it's part of building the business. It's part of what we do. The thing is every time we go into a market, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. Washington, D.C. We just did that fight night, and the gate there for the fight night was almost $1 million. That's how strong ticket sales were in that market. And we put on an amazing event, bells and whistles, the whole thing. If you guys were there, you know that fight was almost, it felt like a pay-per-view when you were there. It felt like you were watching a pay-per-view fight, not a fight, minus the commercial breaks in there. But when you leave a market like that and you put on an event, the fighters delivered, it was awesome. And when you leave a market like that and have that type of an event, that's what helps spread the word. The 10,000 people that were there that night go and, water cooler talk with 10 other people, and that's part of the whole. It's how the buzz spreads about the sport and about the UFC.
Now, speaking about that DC event, a big concern and I guess a criticism of the lighter weight classes is that they've just never caught on with fans. The ratings are actually really impressive. Do you think that means that fans are starting to believe in Dominick Cruz? Or
Yeah, I don't think that there's I don't think that the fans never believed in the lighter weights. What happened was the lighter weights didn't exist in the UFC. These guys were in the WEC, which didn't have the brand power that the UFC has. Now that we're getting these guys, and everybody's going to have their own opinions about it. I think Dominick Cruz is awesome. I love this kid, man. He can't wait to fight. He loves to fight. He's well-rounded. He can do everything. He's not one of these guys that's one-dimensional. If he goes in against a good wrestler, he defends the takedown. He doesn't mind standing up with guys. I think Dominick Cruz is going to be a star. And the other thing that I like about the kid, he broke his friggin' hand. He could care less. He could care less. He didn't even. Most fighters, if their earlobe is sore, they blame that on why they lost the fight or why they didn't look good or whatever. This kid fought the entire fight with a broken hand and never even mentioned it. He's like, yeah, this kid was fast. He was tough to deal with here, there, everywhere else. I take my hat off to him. Then sits through an entire press conference and doesn't mention the broken hand. So I said to him, you didn't even mention your broken hand. He goes, who cares? What difference does it make? I'm going to get it fixed this week and I'll be back for the next fight. Are you kidding me? I love that attitude. Guys usually have 50 different excuses on why they didn't look good. That kid could care less.
Dana, you've talked about never missing a UFC event before. If you do, and when you do put on 2 events on the same night, and it's maybe ironic that it's with the Japan show because you've talked about the issues over there, which one will you go to?
I'm going to do both. I'm kidding. Now I'm getting stupid. I don't know. It's going to matter. It's going to depend on wherever I think I need to be, Trust me. The issues in Japan and the stuff that I've said about everybody over there isn't going to stop me from going to Japan. So it just depends. If we do 2 fights that night and one of them's on Fox, I'm probably going to stay and do the Fox fight,
Will you be okay, though, with handing over it is a UFC event and you're usually...
Yeah, but what we do is we'd have, it's going to be a little weird. It's going to be a little weird, it's always it's been my toughest challenge in growing this business, is giving up control in different areas. But you got to do what you got to do.
Hey, Dan, have you spoken with Matt Hughes yet?
Yeah, he's coming out to Vegas, and him and his wife are meeting with me in the next couple weeks. I think before Halloween.
Tip his hand at all, or just we'll talk to him?
Yeah, you know how he is. Listen, it doesn't matter what he says or what he wants to do. Hughes is going to be with us forever. And, whether he talks me into doing that one more time, which I'd prefer he didn't. I'd rather he didn't. I'd really like to see him retire. I get to this point with these guys, him, Chuck Liddell, these guys who dominated all these years and were such a big part of us growing. What's next? Matt Hughes, believe me when I tell you, does not need money. Okay, he's set. He doesn't ever need to work again. He doesn't ever need to fight again. He's got plenty of money, and I just, you're one of the greatest welterweights ever. Now that George St. Pierre has done what he's done, it's arguable over who. We'll see how he ends his career, but what's the point? What, you're going to go for another title run? You just lost. You lost by knockout. Let's just hang this thing up and do something else together.
Is he the kind of guy that can kind of force your hand though and say, "Hey, I want one
Oh,
more,
he's
man.
the worst.
I've done
He
it for you."
is the worst. The worst. When I go in and give bonuses to all the fighters at the end, he's always negotiating in there for everybody. On The Ultimate Fighter, he was always arguing with me for more money for the guys and all this stuff. He is the worst. So yes, if he wants to keep fighting, it's not going to be a fun conversation. He's going to be negotiating and busting my balls and everything else. But I would love to see him just hang it up now, and we'll do something else together. He doesn't need to fight anymore. It's just I don't want to see it anymore.
Sure. In Denver, you said Showtime was up against their deadline, that it was about time for them to make a call.
And just so you know, he looked good in that fight too.
He looked great
That
in the first part of the first round.
He looked really good.
Yeah.
Till 4:59 of the first round, but he looked good in that first round. So it's always tough to talk to a guy if he came out and looked horrible. But there's also a thing when guys are getting knocked out time and time again. Plus, as much as we don't want to deal with it, when you start to get old, man, this is a young man's game. So anyway, Showtime, man.
Yeah, in Denver, you said that they were up against their deadline as far as making a decision past 2011. Is there any update on that situation and where they stand?
Yeah, I mean, their deadline is now, and I know Lorenzo was in New York yesterday, and he met with them. So,
any idea how it went down?
I don't know. I don't even want to talk about it. I'm not involved in that thing. So, I actually have a call with Lorenzo right after this press conference about it. So, I'll know then.
We'll wait.
We'll touch base.
We'll
Yeah,
wait.
we'll
Why
hang
don't you go
out.
call him?
Yeah, you guys want to hang out? And I'll get out.
We'll pull a Caesar
All right,
Gracie.
let's do it right here.
Yeah, we'll pull a Caesar Gracie.
Do it right here. Put him on speaker.
Have you spoken to Nick Diaz?
Huh?
Have you spoken to Nick Diaz?
No, we haven't talked. Well, yeah, I saw him in D.C. Right? Was it D.C.? No,
Denver.
Denver. Yeah. Can't keep him straight. I saw him in Denver. He was there for his brother's fight. He's good. Seems on track. It's going to be a great fight. I actually really like that fight.
Kind of changing towards that fight. Is that for a #1 contendership for GSP's belt?
Yeah, I mean, I think
It's tough with BJ already.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where we were just talking about if Chael or Stann should win.
Right, yeah.
This is different. I mean, I don't know how many people are clamoring to see BJ versus GSP again. But if Nick should win, I think that's a fight that people want to see. And, I think we got over the hurdles here, and we can try to figure this thing out and get this kid going. I mean, he could show up and be Gray Maynard at the press conference. You know what I mean? I think Gray Maynard said 4 words in 10 questions today. So do that. Just show up and go, Randy Couture was good, yeah. Randy Couture was the last champ.
You mentioned bringing Gilbert Melendez and Mauricio Verdum over. Do you have any matchups for them yet?
Well, if we bring Gilbert over, I mean, Gilbert could go right in for the title shot once this thing is put to rest. Yeah, makes sense.
Melvin Gillard.
And it's all timing. I mean, we have to see what happens. I mean, after this fight, hopefully these guys don't get hurt. You just never know. There's so many other factors, and if that's the case, then a guy like Gilbert comes over here and we give him a tune-up fight, which probably isn't a bad. The thing is, even a guy like Gilbert coming over, you guys have seen it for 10 years. I don't care how dominant or how great a guy is. The first time they fight in the UFC, man, it's crazy. It's happened to everybody. Jake Shields, Carlos Condit when he first came over here and fought, and the list goes on and on of great fighters who've dominated in other places. They get a little knock-kneed when they come and fight in the UFC the first time.
Why do you think that is? Because, like, you know, Nogueira fought in Japan in front of, like, 90,000 people fighting Bob Sapp, but then he comes here and he had that.
It's just so different, man. When you come in here for the first time, man, and depending where we are, whether it's, you know, we're in Washington, D.C. with 85, 9,000 people, whatever we had there for that fight night, or you come into one of the big ones with 22,000 people, the energy inside this arena, the pressure of being in the UFC, it's a lot. It's a lot on the guy, and I've seen it happen over and over and over again. It gets in guys' heads, and you know that nervous energy or whatever you want to call it takes a lot out of them. But then after you get a couple under your belt, and they snap right back into form and usually come out and perform.
You mentioned Jake Shields. Does he want to continue at 170, or does he not even thought about it?
I called Jake after the last press conference. The press reminded me that I haven't talked to Jake Shields yet, and I gave him a call too. And he hasn't called me back yet. You know, I left him a message and said, you know, checking up on you, seeing how you're doing. Give me a buzz when you get time. And he hasn't called me back yet. So I'm going to give him his time to, you know, he just lost his dad. He just lost a fight right after it. So I'm sure he's going through some stuff right now. So I'm going to let him take his time and call me when he's ready.
And did Nate Diaz come out of that last fight pretty unscathed? Is he going to fight against
him? He looked awesome, man. I think it's the best he's ever looked, and yeah, I'm excited to see him fight again.
What's next for Anderson? Is he really stunning to beat him, or maybe Anderson?
Yeah, we don't know. We got to see what happens here, and you know, the question earlier was, you know, the winner of this fight deserve a shot at Anderson. It'd be tough to say no. That either guy that wins wouldn't, you know, but. You got to. It would be tough to say that if Henderson beats Shogun, that Henderson doesn't deserve the shot either. So we'll see what happens.
Depends on the matter the fights go.
Yeah, and timing and everything else. Yeah.
Okay. What about Lyoto Machida? You said he today he's at the dessert.
Yeah.
Will you wait for 2 days? Or?
Yeah. Everybody on Twitter is all over me thinking that I'm messing with Lyoto Machida because the Anderson Silva money thing. I'm not mad at Lyoto. Believe me, I've been in this business for a long time. I've gone through a lot of stuff with a lot of guys, and I like Lyoto. He's a nice guy. You know, do I think he made a bad decision in calling back and saying, yeah, we'll take Anderson Silva money? Of course I do. Am I mad at him for it? Absolutely not. But what happens is sometimes these guys put themselves in positions where, like Lyoto did that, and now he's sitting out for this long. It's not because of me. What fight do you want me to make? I tried to make the Davis fight. Davis's knee is still hurt. He can't take the fight. There's no other fights out there right now. Same thing happened to Rashad Evans. Rashad said, I'm going to sit out and wait for Shogun's knee to heal. And then all these people started getting injured, and it led to him not fighting for a year and a half. You know? When you get offered a fight, you better take it. Take it while it's available.
As far as Rashad, he said that he thinks that Bones is going to fake an injury. And just to not get that fight, is that a fight that you're pretty... you're going to force it, basically?
He thinks that Bones is going to force a fake an injury. He's the one that's hurt right now. He's got pins in his thumb. You know what I mean? It's just these two hate each other so bad, they're going to say crazy shit about each other. So, Bones Jones has never faked an injury. He's never tried to not fight somebody. Believe me, I'd be the first one to tell you if that was the case.
The Toronto card that Machida and Davis were linked to, one of the guys on that card last night tweeted that a main event was set and he knew what it was. Is there any truth to that?
Say that again?
I think last night Tito tweeted that he knew what the main event at UFC 140 was going to be. Just wonder if there's
What's
any
140?
truth to that.
Toronto?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Good for Tito, man. He should call me and tell me what it is. That would be awesome. There's not a main event yet. I'm working on stuff. I have been this whole time. No main event is made. Nothing is done yet. I'm trying to think. The guys that were even thinking about it, how would Tito know what the main event is? It makes no sense.
Yeah, I just actually got a text. Someone asked me, "What's this about Tito saying he knows the main event?"
Tito. Is that it? Guys?